We recently had the honor of meeting with Mr. Barney Loeb to talk about the history of our area. Mr. Loeb brings a unique perspective to this topic because it was he and his partner Quinn Hogan who built the first subdivision of houses in what went on to become Vernon Hills. In fact, Mr. Loeb and his partner were the driving force behind incorporating the village of Vernon Hills. Mr. Loeb and Mr. Hogan also developed Tally Ho Golf Course and Resort. The Tally Ho Country Club went on to become the Vernon Hills Village Hall for many years and is now known as the Lashin Community Center, and that's where we stand today. This interview took place on January 22nd, 2003. Thank you to Mr. Loeb and his family for taking time to share this history with us.
Well, I'm Barney Loeb. I live in Libertyville, and I've lived in this part of the country for 50 years, and here I am from farmland to a metropolitan city.
And tell us, what was the population like?
Population of Mundelein at that time was 1,200. Libertyville was 5,400, and that was the population.
Because there really wasn't a Vernon
Less than
Hills.
10,000 people.
Right, and now we're looking at between Vernon Hills.
Vernon Hills, Libertyville, Mundelein, over 60,000 people.
Yeah, in a very short time.
Very short time.
And Vernon Hills really didn't exist at that point in any way, shape,
There was no Vernon Hills.
and when you came out here, you started with your building in the Mundelein area, is that
No,
correct?
no. I came out here and I worked for a company that was building houses in Mundelein. And I bought one of the houses that I was working for, the company that I was working for. And that's how that started.
And you said you were not quite in the Hawthorne School District, but can you tell me a little bit about that first Hawthorne
yes,
School?
yeah. We were 4 houses outside of the Hawthorne School District. And everybody wanted, at that time, everybody wanted to go to Hawthorne because it was a one-room schoolhouse. On Milwaukee Avenue and Route 60, there was not even a stop sign. Not even a stop sign, and you'd have to almost pull out to the middle of Milwaukee Avenue to see if a car was coming in either direction. That's how sparse it was.
And a lot of scrub and a lot of trees? Or?
A lot of trees. There were all of the shrubbery that was growing up right up on the lines of the road, you know, the property lines. Was overshadowing the road itself. And that was Hawthorne Shopping Center. That was and you couldn't even see into the place.
So it was just like overgrown.
It was just overgrown.
What about Hawthorne Melody Farms and that whole area? What was that like?
Hawthorne Melody Farms, that was the attraction in Libertyville for many years. They had I think it was the cow petting farm, where they used to have displays of all of the farms and so forth. The milking parlor, that's what it was. Cunio's milking parlor. Or Hawthorne milking parlor. It was a different era entirely.
When I understand,
all farmers.
And I understand there were farms all the way as you went down Milwaukee. That was all big farms, too, if I'm not mistaken. Or
well, Cunio had over 1,000 acres. He had, like on Butterfield Road, he had a pig farm on Butterfield Road that people used to complain about, the smell. But that's about the only thing they had on Butterfield Road, was the pig farm.
And what's Red Top?
Hmm?
What about Red Top?
Red Top, that used to be the Florsheim estate.
That was Florsheim Shoes?
Florsheim Shoes. Mm-hmm.
Really? Now, was that also a farm, or was that?
That was all farm too. That was like 600 or 700 acres.
These were huge estates, and these weren't little, 80-acre farms.
Well, the Cunio farm used to be the Insel farm, who was the secretary to Mr. Bell, the telephone company. They had a training track, and they raised thoroughbreds. In fact, he had a famous horse called Milwaukee Avenue. was an Illinois-bred horse.
And that was the...
That's Milady. That was Milady. He's the one that had Red Top Farm. Florsheim, it was, Insull had both sides of Milwaukee Avenue, yeah, originally. And then Florsheim had the east side of Milwaukee Avenue. CUNY had the west side of Milwaukee Avenue.
And then Milady came in.
Then Milady came in, and he had the east side. And he had several thoroughbred horses that he was raising out there.
And that's where now we have Red Top Plaza.
That's where Red Top is located. Yeah. Hewitt was on the Hawthorne property. They were the only source of. They were the only business property there, and nobody, I don't think anybody, ever knew who was there on that property. I don't think anybody ever knew there was a business on that property, and there was. I'm trying to think of the year, but that had to be in the 50s also. Yeah, they had 65 people working for them at that time, compared to like over 14,000 today. Allied Farms were, you may say, on the corner of 60 and Milwaukee Avenue going south for I think 600 or 700 acres. They were big. That was a corporate, and that was acquired from the Sisters of Charity, Catholic organization.
And they had that much land?
Mm-hmm. Funny part of it is, my wife, Mary Louise, comes from Cleveland, and she has a girlfriend in Cleveland whose husband worked for the Sisters of Charity. And she called one day and she said, do you know anything about this property on the corner of 60 and Milwaukee Avenue? The Sisters of Charity own, and they want to find out how much the property is worth, or what the value is. And that's a small world. I would say Vernon Hills started in 1957. 57. So that's 45 years ago. Long time. And then from 57 till it was very slow. It was a very slow moving deal. In fact, it took, in order to form the town of Vernon Hills, it took 2 years of legal haranguing to get that town formed. And well, I'm just trying to think of all of the things that took place. It was just an awful lot. All the people in the area were dead set against the town. My partner and I, Quinn Hogan, we were building houses. We bought that property on 45, which was 120 acres, $500 an acre. Was the total cost of Vernon Hills, you might say, to start up. And then all the surrounding people were against it being formed as a town, but that all came after a while. We just applied for a, we had been building houses in different areas at the time. And we started building a group of houses in Streamwood for a development company. We built 20 houses, and they formed a town called Streamwood. That was the town of Streamwood. So we were really emulating the town of Streamwood by forming a town in Vernon Hills. That's how that all came about. That's just a long, long process. I remember going to the township, the highway commissioner, and naming the town, and they said we were going to name it Forest Hills. And they said, well, we've got Forest Lake, and we've got another something that is Forest, and if you could change the name to something else, That would be more advisable, I would say. So we thought, well, it's in the township of Vernon, so why not call it Vernon Hills? So that's how that came about.
My mother always wants to know where the hills are, because she comes from...
Wait a minute, where is a hill? You go out there on the golf course, and you'll see on one hole it's a par 3 course. We built the tee up about 50 feet. That's about the only hill you'll see out there. And incidentally, that's where my ex-partner is right now, at Vernon Hills, scattered all over the property. He passed away, 10
years ago?
I was going to say 10 years ago.
And that's where he wanted to be scattered?
Yeah, so and he's scattered up on that hill I'm telling you about. He's up on the top of that tee.
Which
They
tee
call
is
it-
it?
It's a par 3 hole. We dug a lake, and with the spoil of that, we built a tee. So the tee is way up there. You have to walk all the way up the top, and then hit over. So his daughter and myself, we went over there one day with the remains, and then there's a fence around the whole entire golf course. And we said, well, we'll pick this spot here and go. So it was 5 feet. The fence was about 5 feet on this side, and when you went over, holy Toledo was 7 feet on the other. Coming back, I thought I'd have a heart attack coming back. Going over was one way, but coming back was pretty tough.
So that's where he is.
That's where he is.
So next time you're up on that tee...
Well, he's scattered all over, but we saved a little bit for the top of the hill, too. We had a little practice because when we went to Streamwood, we were the original builders of the original houses. So we saw how that whole situation took place. And then we took the attorney who put that deal together, and he's the one that did all the incorporating at Vernon Hills. We sold 188 houses in one weekend, first weekend we opened.
How were you building like that? Were you using like newer methods where you were like
Prefabricated houses. At one time, we were putting up 6 houses a day. At one time, we had 9950. 9950, I think, was the original. 9950 then went from 9950 to 15950. That was the most expensive house we had. And this was the time. When the Eisenhower Expressway was just taking place, Congress Expressway. So they were tearing down all the houses in the city of Chicago, and all these people had no place to go. And that was even better yet because that was no money down. That was no money down.
no money down? You could just
No
come out
money
there?
down, just $250 closing costs. That's all it took to buy a house.
So that's, how many houses were you selling on a weekend?
Well, the first week was 188 houses in that whole entire week. We had people waiting. Well, we'd have 1, 2, 3. We had 3 models, and then the sales office. And there were people in the sales office that, and this is the middle of January too, like the weather is like now, COLD. They must have been standing out for about a half a block long, waiting to get in. And my ex-partner say, anybody who's got a $10 bill, raise your hand. You step up to the counter here and you just bought yourself a house. Number one, because we were selected by National Homes at the time to build the first 20 houses in Streamwood. You needed a population of 100, and I think you needed 35 voters to form a town. That's what the requirements were at that time. And you couldn't be within a mile and a half of any other municipality. Those were about the only restrictions at that time. But it took us 2 years to get that thing, and about, well, geez, a ton of money, attorney fees. That's how all of this other stuff happened. Because we were just going to form a town and then build houses. So that was an alternate plan. Actually, the mayor was our sales manager. And all of the people living in those 20 houses all were subcontractors or all had something to do with L&H Builders. That was our company at the time. So you might say there just was a little bit of control.
Who was the first mayor then? What?
Matt Fiolis.
Oh, that's okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so that's how you created it. You did it like that then.
Mm-hmm. Had our own squad car, our own justice of the peace, our own village board. The reason that Vernon Hills, I won't say Vernon Hills, the reason that Hawthorne Center is where it is was because of a dissenter in Libertyville, because Libertyville did not want to annex Hawthorne to the town of Libertyville. They didn't want Hawthorne to be in this area. So they figured that they would just make a referendum, start a referendum, and if the people voted on it, yes. Cuneo said, if you're going to start a referendum, we'll go someplace else. So he did. He went to Vernon Hills.
So is that how then Cuneo Estate became part of Vernon Hills? He just,
yeah.
attached himself this way,
Mm-hmm.
and then Hawthorne Center could be built.
That's right.
Interesting.
So as you drive down Milwaukee Avenue, you're on the west side where the bank is. On the west side of Milwaukee Avenue is Vernon Hills. On the east side is Libertyville, all the way to 60.
Tell me a little bit about, once you started building those houses there,
Mm-hmm.
that's where our village hall is now,
Right.
and all that stuff. And it used to be Tally-Ho?
Used to be a golf course. It was a golf course, a country club, a motel, and a restaurant.
How long ago was that?
It was 1957, 58,
Okay.
59.
So, and that's,
When they stopped us from forming the town, in the meantime, we felt, well, what are you going to do now? Why don't we build a golf course? We'll build a golf course, and we'll have a daily fee golf course, a restaurant, and a motel, and we'll do that over a period of time. But it happened over maybe in a period of a year's time that all that came together. Everything happened all at once.
and I understand that was a pretty high-profile golf course, clubhouse, restaurant.
Yes, it was.
What kind of did you ever frequent it, or were you too busy working, or did you get in there to see some of the people who would visit?
Oh yeah, well, Hogan was more instrumental in that part of it than I was, and there were a lot of interesting people that used to come out there.
And they would come where'd they come out from, Chicago?
Chicago. Mm-hmm. We thought that we could draw people from Chicago just like over the weekends. You know, they could come out on the weekend, go to a restaurant, motel, play golf, and like the Wagon Wheel in Rockford, something similar to that, like a little resort area. That was the intention anyway. Things never worked out the way they were supposed to. But we were we opened the restaurant, knowing nothing about the restaurant business. We opened the restaurant on Mother's Day, the biggest day of the restaurant business. And we had people wait 2 and 3 hours just to be received. The clubhouse that was like 20,000 feet. We had a swimming pool, probably the biggest swimming pool. The clubhouse, the swimming pool, the restaurant, the motel, the golf course, all of that came about in about, I'd say maybe 2 years at the most. Boom, boom, boom. I'd say they were more than draftsmen. They were, I'd say you'd have to call them between a draftsman and an architect, designers. They were designing the clubhouse while we were building it, really. So they designed the clubhouse, and then they drew up a foundation plan. And as they finished the foundation plan, we'd pour the foundation, and by the time that was finished, we went from there. And it used to be, was separated into 3 components: dining room on the left, the dining room on the right, and the center section was a huge area used for dancing and an orchestra stand in the back and the kitchen and so forth. And alongside of each of those areas was a bar. There was a bar on the dining room side on the left, and a bar on the dining room side on the right off of the orchestra area. So it was pretty cute. Let me back off a minute. I was driving down 83 one day, and I was passing up a truck, and on the side of the truck it said Didier Golf Course Construction. I almost ran him off the road to ask him, what is this golf course, you know, how much would a hole on a golf course cost? And I thought, at that time, we had our own excavating outfit, we had our own carpentry, our own everything at that time. And he said, well, it would cost about $15,000 a hole. About $15,000 a hole, and we've got all this equipment, and we could do it for a lot less. Anyway, I think it ended up costing us $20,000 doing it ourselves. The geisha room was really built by Japanese carpenters. Soji screens, you know, closing it this way. And you walked in, and you had to take your shoes off, and we gave you slippers. In fact, were the slippers in there?
I don't think so.
I had a pair of slippers somewhere.
I didn't see
Anyway, and the slippers, and then you had a happy coat that you put on. And then you sit down at that would be the table right there. You sit on the floor with cushions. And then we have a geisha gal dressed just like a geisha gal. I mean, Japanese gal with the hump in the back and everything, and she's cuter than heck. She was really cute. I mean, she was not a beautiful girl, but she was really cute in the attire and everything, and her actions. It was just great.
And you served like Japanese food then, like sushi?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It was all, and then surprising, the guys used to be over in Vietnam that would come in there and just, you know, sort of nostalgic approach to things. And then we had that was a room in the back, and then the room in the front was called the sailfish room. We had a big sailfish on the wall, and that was all seafood. And then off one side was called the Paddock Club, which was the tablecloths were all made out of racing forms. So, yeah, then we had pictures on the wall of racehorses and so forth. It was different. And then to the left as you walked in, and there was the cocktail lounge. And on one side, you sat at the bar on a stool. On the other side was a chair. It was like a stepped bar. And then in the center was like an oval. That's where the bands that we had would be there. You're limited to about 3 or 4 pieces, but that's where they would stay.
You said that's where your entertainers were then?
And well, yeah. Then we'd have all the tables in the background would all be on a raised level. It was pretty cute. But at 75 cents a drink, you really had to pour an awful lot of stuff.
That's the stuff I missed.
Huh?
That's what I would have liked to see.
It was really, it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun.
And you said you didn't have really any restaurant experience. You just had guts, I guess.
Oh, no. It says here, call Harry. Harry Calavas was he was a maitre d' at one of the big restaurants on Rush Street in Chicago. And that's where Hogan got a hold of him. And he ran the whole restaurant.
I see that. If you're displeased, tell Harry.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. This was a high-end thing. So you just, with guts, you just went for it then?
No brains. Dinner menu includes an ever-full salad bowl, choice of homemade dressings, cheese rolls, bottomless cup of freshly brewed coffee. All the dressings are packaged for home use. The entrees is succulent pork skewered, $2.95. Filet mignon, $2.95. Charcoal broiled shrimp, $2.95. Lobster tail, $3.95. Appetizers, jumbo shrimp cocktail, $1. Cocktails, martini, 75 cents. T-bone steak, $3.50. Porterhouse steak was the highest thing on the menu, $5.95. My ex-partner used to say this is where the wind turned around. From farmland to a metropolitan city.